fixed cost. It's talking about the behavior of cost. And you will see variable cost. That's another group that you need to understand the difference. And what are we talking about? This categorization is based on activity. We are asking, how does activity drive cost? How does this drive cost? What I'm saying is, activity means level of production. Just to break it down. And what we are saying about level of production is, if I produce 100 units, how does it affect my cost? If I produce 1,000 units, does it change the cost? If I produce 1,500, does it change the cost? This is activity. You can see these are three different activities. Activity 1, level 2, level 3. Different levels of activity. So any cost, that doesn't change with change in level of activity is called your fixed cost. It does not change. Example is your rent. If you're going to rent a 3-bedroom, it's fixed. Whether you have someone staying in 2 rooms or 3 rooms or 1 room, it doesn't change your rent. If you want to sublet that rent to make those rooms to make money, whether you're able to rent out 1 room, rent out 2 rooms, or rent out 3 rooms, the original rent will remain the same because it's fixed, it's sunk. And this is also called sunk cost. So start getting used to those terminologies. It's also called sunk because you already incurred it. Whether you decide to produce more units or less units, the production facility that you have rented, you will always pay that rent, and it's not going to change. And that is what is called fixed cost, because it does not change. Another example of fixed cost is when you have fixed salaries, which is very common. You already agreed with the person how much you will pay. Whether the person works or not, you will pay them the salary. There's nothing you can do. Insurance cost. That's also fixed. It's not driven by the number of units you produce. So those are examples of fixed cost. And in terms of graph, which you also need to be comfortable with, your fixed cost is always a straight line. It doesn't change. That's your fixed cost. Even when units is increasing like this, it doesn't change. This is the cost column. It remains at the same level, even despite that the activity is changing. That's fixed cost. Now, this is not to say that fixed cost per unit does not change. Remember, the fixed cost that we are talking about here, please take note, is total fixed cost. Because I need to let you understand, because that is a point where I've seen students struggle a bit. This is total fixed cost. And I will give you a scenario. Imagine you have a rent of production facility to be $20,000. This will not change regardless of whether you produce 5,000 units in that facility or you produce 10,000 units in that facility. You will still pay $20,000. That's your total fixed cost. So this is what I'm calling total fixed cost. However, when you want to talk about fixed cost per unit, if you want to try and determine what fixed cost per unit is, fixed cost per unit is always indirectly proportional to activity. And what does that mean? It means that when activity increases, fixed cost per unit will decrease. And let's look at this. At 5,000, fixed cost per unit, is 20,000 or 5,000, that is $4. Whereas when the activity increases to 10,000, it becomes $2. If you increase the activities again to 15,000, it becomes 20,000 divided by 15,000. And that becomes 5,354. That becomes 0.75. You can see how fixed cost per unit is decreasing based on increasing level of activity. And you can actually represent that on a graph. If we stick to activity here and cost per unit here, please take note. Now it has changed. This is now fixed cost per unit. It's no more total cost. This is total fixed cost that we've done here. That's a straight line graph. In this case, as activity is going up, activity is increasing, the fixed cost per unit will decrease. Just as we have shown here, from 4 to 2 to 0.75. So please take note. It doesn't mean that fixed cost decreases itself. It does not decrease. It's when you try to show it per unit that it decreases. Please have that understanding very clear. Because it's very important. Now let's look at variable cost. Variable cost is the type of cost that will change based on activity level. So this changes based on changes in activity level. So unlike fixed cost, total fixed cost that does not change, the total variable cost changes based on level of activity. And usually your variable cost per unit, interestingly, does not change. But I will take you later on circumstances when it might change, right? But generally speaking, it does not change. But a scenario where it can change is when there is a bulk discount and all of that. I will look at it later, but don't put that complication in now. You just know that variable cost is usually the price of material or the price of getting one staff to work for 1 hour, right? So all of that is variable cost, because the more unit of production you need, the more materials you have to produce, the more people you need to work, the more hours the machine needs to work. So all of that will increase based on the unit of production. So variable cost is directly proportional to the unit of production. So the higher the unit of production, the higher the variable cost. If you're going to manufacture drinks, the more drinks you need to manufacture, the more material, the more bottles, the more water, the more ingredients you need, because they are variable cost items and they are directly attributable to the level of production. So in variable, what we're saying is, in the form of graph, if this is activity and this is cost, we're saying that as activity is going up, the cost is also going up. And the best way to represent that is a type of graph like this. So this is a graph of variable cost. So I hope you've seen the difference between the variable cost, because for fixed cost, it's like this. Very important to note that. And usually, in terms of cost per unit, if I do a graph of cost per unit, remember, cost per unit graph is different from total cost graph. If it's cost per unit, variable cost is like this. However, fixed cost per unit is like this. So don't get confused. Please take note and understand the difference between the two graphs, because you can be given the graph and be asked in exam which of the following accurately explains the type of graph above, something like that. Okay, now that is the general nature of cost and types, but sometimes there are some peculiarities that might make it slightly different from what I've explained. And the first one I'm going to touch on is what I'm going to call step fixed cost. Because I know I've told you that total fixed cost does not change regardless of the level of activity. So that is the general understanding of fixed cost. However, there are some strange fixed costs. There are some funny fixed costs that can change when activity level changes. And that doesn't stop them from being fixed cost. They are still fixed cost, but they have changed because a level of activity has changed as well. Right? But it doesn't mean that every single time the level of activity changes, they change like variable cost. No. Usually, this type of step-up fixed cost is once in a while. And I can give you an instance. Let's say you run a factory. Yeah? You have a factory that's manufacturing cars. Now, you decide, you are manufacturing cars. This factory, you'll be paying rent for sure on it. However, if you decide to step up your activity, maybe you used to produce 1,000 cars before, and you discover that you want to start producing 2,500 cars because you found a new market. There's a likelihood that you need an expanded factory. So you need to rent additional factory. So you go to rent a new factory. In that case, your rent that used to be at a particular level here will go up because of this new factory. And that is why you will see some questions that will say, when unit of production goes above, take for instance, 5,000 units, fixed costs will also go up by $2,000, for an example. This is the kind of scenario that leads to that kind of question. So what you need to understand is it is still a fixed cost, but what has happened is it has stepped up. So it's called a step fixed cost because it is affected by the level of activity. Yeah. Not to say that variable cost doesn't also get affected. Remember, we said variable cost is usually like this, because it is increasing the cost as the activity is also increasing. However, depending on what is going on, if there is scarcity of resources, it gets to a point whereby when demand is high, remember economics, when demand is high and there is scarcity, what happens to price? Price will also go up. Because the demand is high. And in that case, this graph that has been gently going like this might step up. Excuse me. Will go up like that. So in that case, because there is scarcity here, so your variable cost per unit will be higher than what it used to be at this point. However, if there is no scarcity, but maybe there is what we call the bulk discount. What is bulk discount? Bulk discount is just example when a seller says, if you buy less than 5,000 units, I will sell to you at $5 per unit. But in order to encourage you to buy more, they'll say, if you can buy more than 10,000 units, I will sell to you at $4 per unit. So which means at a particular activity, your variable cost per unit can also come down. And in that case, you see this starts to come down. So this is a point where you are having a bulk discount. And this is a place where you can be having a scarcity. So I need you to know the scenario. So whatever graph you see, whatever you find, you can understand. And not just have one way understanding, but you should have a complete understanding the way this cost can behave and the way you need to interpret it. And the last point is to introduce to you an equation of a straight line, which is very important. The people that probably love mathematics will love this part. But whether you love mathematics or not, please, you must understand this. And I'll break it down to you as much as possible. Equation of a straight line is y equals to mx plus c, which we were required to know back then in high school, right? What does y stand for? Y is the y-axis. So this is y-axis, this is x-axis, and you have c as intercept. We call it intercept. So you have a straight line graph like this. This is c, yeah? We usually say c is equals to value of y when x equals to 0. So on this line, x is equals to 0, but the line is crossing y at c. That's called why it is called interception. Yeah, and I will explain what all of this mean. But first of all, let's practice something. If fixed cost is equals to 10,000 and variable cost per unit is equals to $5. Now let's find the total cost. Yeah, at this level of activity, 2,000 units of production, 3,000, 5,000. Obviously, the way to calculate the total cost when when activity is 2,000 units, we already know that fixed cost will be fixed and it will never change. So that will be 10,000. Nothing's going to change it. Plus the total variable cost is variable cost per unit multiplied by the number of units that we have produced. So which means plus 5 multiplied by 2,000. And that will give us 10,000 plus another 10,000. And that is equals to 20,000. The same thing we can do for 3,000 activity. Fixed cost remains fixed because it's fixed cost. Plus $5 per unit multiplied by 3,000 units. And that will give us 25,000 as total cost. For 5,000, our total cost will still be equals to fixed cost of 10,000 plus $5 per unit times 5,000 units. And that will be total cost of 35,000. So you can see invariably that what we've done here is that the total cost is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. That is the formula for calculating your total cost. However, sometimes you wonder, will you be able to calculate it this easy? They will not likely give you this direct. And that is why you need to understand this equation of a straight line that has been introduced, because you need to understand how to use it to determine your different types of cost. Yeah. And this equation of a straight line, I've told you why is the y-axis, m is your slope, x is your x-axis, and c is your intercept. But how do you apply that in what we are talking about? Yeah. So what you need to know is that y equals to mx plus c, right? Now, y is what we are referring to as total cost in this equation of a straight line. That's total cost. You see, it's very similar to this equation. So just follow me. So y is your total cost, and it's also called your dependent variable. And why is it dependent? Because it cannot determine its own value by itself. It's a function of other things, because it's addition of fixed cost and variable cost. So a lot of things determine what y will be. On its own, it cannot have its own value. Unlike x, that is the variable cost, and it's called independent because it does not depend on anything. Yeah, it's driven by level of activity in terms of total, but in terms of its cost per unit, it is what it is. It is constant, if you remember. It does not change. Variable cost per unit here. Look at it. It doesn't care. It's just going straight. So it's independent. Yeah. The C that I'm talking about there I call it intercept. Yeah, it's usually a constant value, and that is why it's usually the fixed cost. That's your fixed cost. Yeah, it does not matter whether the level of activity is 0 or whatever it is, it's fixed. It does not change. And that is why another way to say it is to say that intercept is the total cost when there is no level of activity. And you can think about it. When there is no level of activity, yeah, at 0 activity, let's say 0 activity. At 0 activity, your total variable cost will be equals to 0. And we said total cost is equals to total fixed cost plus total variable cost, yeah, which is the same thing as this. Yeah, it's the same thing I'm talking about. Yeah, I could put T here and put T here. I don't want anything to get you confused. Yeah, it's the same thing. So if there is no activity, it means that we are not producing anything. Yeah, 0 activity. And at 0 activity, there is no material, there is no labor. Variable cost will be 0. Yeah, so this will be 0. In that case, total cost becomes total fixed cost. And that is why it doesn't care what activity is going on. It remains fixed. What happens to total cost is it starts to increase when activity starts to increase. And the part that is making it to increase is this part, the variable part. Please, I hope that is very clear. Okay, now I'll work a question for you to understand how you can be asked in an exams. And that is the final part. Pay attention. Let's say with this level of activity, we have total cost. Right? So say at 12,000 units, total cost is 58,000. At 16,000 units, total cost is 74,000. At, let's say, 14,000, total cost is 68,000. Now you are asked to calculate variable cost per unit and what fixed cost is. Anytime you are faced with this kind of scenario where you have more than 2 level of activities, please take note. Always work with the lowest and the highest activity. Activity levels. Those are the 2 levels you work, which means in this case, we'll work with this and we'll work with this. Now, going back to our equation of a straight line, yeah, which is what I always advise you to work with, y equals to mx plus c, which is practically the same thing as just saying that total cost is equals to variable cost per unit times level of activity plus fixed cost. It's similar thing we're talking about because this is total fixed cost and this is total variable cost and this is total fixed cost, right? So whichever way you are very comfortable with, which is good, yeah, but you can use this because it's very intuitive. If it's really for the people that don't like mathematics, I will advise you stick to this style because remember we said total cost is equals to total variable cost plus total fixed cost. And you know that total fixed cost is fixed. It does not change. So it's what it is. However, the total variable cost is equals to variable cost per unit multiplied by level of activity, which is what I've put here. So knowing that, then this is fine, then you can take care of both. Now let's look at this guy and this guy. So at 12,000 units, the total cost is 58,000. So 58,000, yeah, let's work in thousand, is equals to fixed cost that we don't know, plus the variable cost per unit that we don't know, I will call it X, and activity level is 12,000. So that's, let's call variable per unit X. So that's 12,000 X. So X is our variable cost per unit. We are working in thousands, so I'll make it F. So let's just make it 12X. Yeah. And at a different level, highest level of 16,000, we have 74 as total cost. So 74 equals to fixed cost that we're looking for plus level of activity of 16,000, so 16x. So we have those two equations. Yeah, so we'll call this one equation 1, we'll call this one equation 2. Yeah, the way you deal with this is the next step is to subtract equation 1 from equation 2. So which means this minus this, this minus this, this minus this. So 74 minus 58, that will give us 16. So equals to fixed cost minus fixed cost will give us 0. Then 16x minus 12x will give us plus 4x. And equation is simplified. So 4x equals to 16. So there's something about this paper, you need to brush up a bit of your mathematics so that you can really feel comfortable with this paper. And if you're not very comfortable with this mathematics thing, you need to then practice more often and do a lot. Yeah, because you will need all these little mathematics concepts in management accounting. Yeah, so x equals to 16 divided by 4 and x equals to $4. So which means variable cost per unit is equals to $4. And that is that. Now to get the fixed cost, you can just substitute in any of equation 1 or equation 2. So let's work with equation 2, which says that 74 equals to fixed cost that we're looking for plus 16x. We know x is equals to 4, so it means 74 equals to fixed cost plus 16 times 4. And 16 times 4 is, what is that? That is 64. So 74 equals to fixed cost plus 64. Then fixed cost equals to 74 minus 64. So our fixed cost is 10,000. And that is it. So you can see how we've gone through it. We have different levels. We only focused on the lowest and highest level of activity, 12 and 16. That's step 1. You work with that, then form your equation 1 and 2, subtract equation 1 from 2, and you can calculate your variable cost first and calculate your fixed cost after. Yeah, and if you ask total variable cost, remember, will always vary based on activity level. So total variable cost at 12,000 activity will be 12,000 units multiplied by 4, and that will be 48k. And at 16k, that will be 16,000 multiplied by 4, and that will be 64k. And that is total variable cost level. And that is exactly what you are seeing here and what you should understand comfortably now. And if you have any question, feel free, put up a question, put a comment, keep the likes coming. That's the only way you can encourage me to do more videos for you. Please share, subscribe, put on your notifications so that you get to know when I post new videos, and we'll connect again in the next video where we'll be even going deeper in trying to understand this cost. Until then, bye for now.